Fighting an arson fire, the Hamilton Fire Department is releasing a report detailing exactly what went wrong.
But the head of the Firefighters Union says it leaves out key details that could prevent future deaths. Walter Smith-Randolph is here now with this Local 12 exclusive. Walter.
Cami and Kyle, Local 12 Investigates has uncovered internal departmental emails accusing the Hamilton Fire Chief of omitting facts to save face. Tonight, the union president tells me the fire department needs to own what was removed from the report. Tony Harris was there the night Patrick Wolterman died.
My role that night was driving engine 24.
Harris, president of Hamilton Professional Firefighters Union Local 20, also delivered the news to Wolterman's widow.
I don't want to be standing on another person's porch telling their loved one that something's happened because I failed to speak up.
Which is why Harris wants to speak up about what he believes may have contributed to Wolterman's death.
We don't get to hide from the truth and the facts. We have to face things head on so that it doesn't happen again.
Harris says this 63-page report omits some of the details. Emails obtained by Local 12 Investigates shows a deputy fire chief agrees. Released in March, the report attributes Wolterman's December 2015 death on 5 contributing factors, including communication and mistakes made in the field. While staffing and response time were included in the additional findings portion of the report, Harris says the report doesn't own those issues.
The staffing number that we had that night is the staffing number that we have today, right now, 22 members on shift. Before the closures in 2013, we had 28 members working every day, so that was 2 more fire engines.
We asked Hamilton Fire Chief Mark Mercer for an on-camera interview. He said he would be happy to provide written replies to our written questions rather than sit down for an interview. When asked why personnel reductions were eliminated from the report, Mercer said in his written responses, the purpose of the report was to identify the factors that contributed to the fireground fatality, not an overall evaluation of fire department functions nor staffing. After the city shuttered a fire station in 2013 and reduced staff by 6 firefighters, Harris says response time doubled.
It went from 2 minutes and 59 seconds to 6 minutes and 23 seconds, and those were the things, that was one of the major things that was omitted from that.
Those exact response times are listed right here in the draft report. They're backed by a study that tested the response time to Patter Avenue 10 times prior to the closing of the fire station and 9 times after the station's closure. In his written response, Mercer said, during the review of the draft report, the discussion of response times could not be supported nor recreated. I don't doubt the effort that was put into it. However, I could not support the statements. Harris also takes issue with the final report listing response by mileage. He says the national standard is to list response by time.
We don't say there's a firehouse within 1.2 miles of your house. We say a fire truck can be at your door in 3 to 4 minutes.
This is the National Fire Prevention Association Standard 1710. It measures all response objectives by time and not mileage. It was created in 2001, 12 years before Wolterman's death. Mercer says that the response time is one measure and cited the Insurance Services Office, which uses travel distance for measure. Harris says staffing was also an issue. Internal emails obtained by Local 12 Investigates show Harris is not the only person who expressed concerns about staffing issues. This email from Deputy Chief Thomas Eichelberger to Chief Mark Mercer in February 2018 says, I feel very strongly about including the details involving staffing level reductions that the department sustained during the city's budget reduction and how that may have had an impact that night. While the final report mentions staffing, it does not highlight how staffing levels affected response that night. The draft report, which we obtained through an open records request, included 2 pages of findings on staff level reductions.
Staffing and response times, I think those are direct correlation, and those are the changes that would cost the city more money.
Mercer said in his written responses, so what if Engine 27 were staffed with 3 firefighters and had been dispatched to the fire and had arrived 2 minutes earlier? Would that response time have made a difference in the incident? The answer is absolutely not.
Again, when we made the easy things that didn't cost as much money, and we didn't want to own the other issues that we have, that we continue to have.
Internal emails show Deputy Chief Eichelberger was also not satisfied with the final report. On September 11, 2018, he emailed Fire Administration saying, if we are not going to address the issues resulting from station truck closures, personnel reductions, and the resulting rat response from Engine 21 on the far west side, I cannot willingly place my name on the amended report. I feel as though we are intentionally omitting important information only to save face. Mercer responded to Eichelberger's email by saying, "We are not intentionally omitting any information to save face. I am actually a bit offended that you say that in that way." The report committee consisted of a 5-member team that did not respond to the Patter Avenue fire. While they signed the draft report, their names were removed from the final report. When we asked Mercer why those names were removed, he wrote, "Several members chose to remove themselves from the committee and to stop participating. Each had the opportunity to continue to participate and to sign the report. Their names were not removed. The choice was that of the members."
The public actually should be aware of it. And I know that city leadership and city council and people, they are aware of it also, but they have failed to face it head on. And that was our hope from this report.
We tried to talk to Deputy Chief Eichelberger regarding his concerns and the emails we just showed you. Chief Mercer told us, quote, he would be the sole spokesperson fulfilling the role of providing comment on the issue from the department. Coming up in part 2 of this story, we'll explore concerns about response times for key safety officials involved anytime a fire breaks out in the city of Hamilton. That's tomorrow at 6 p.m.
We told you about the concerns the Hamilton Firefighters Union has with the report on Patrick Wolterman's death.
The union president says some facts were omitted and other factors were overlooked. And those factors include the delayed response time of a rapid assistance team and safety officers. Walter Smith Randolph explains.
When a department responds to a fire, typically a team of initial responders are assigned to the rapid assistance team known as the RAT team. Someone is also made the safety officer. The safety officer ensures the firefighters follow safety procedures while the RAT team rescues lost or trapped firefighters. The night Patrick Wolterman died, the RAT team showed up 6 minutes after initial crews were on scene, and the safety officer showed up 45 minutes after dispatch. The union president tells me those 2 factors should have been emphasized in the 63-page report. Instead, they're listed as additional findings. The night Patrick Wolterman died, he did not have his radio on. This 63-page report on Wolterman's death lists the off radio as a contributing factor to his death. Local 20 union president Tony Harris says he had more questions about that radio than other concerning factors.
And it's important for us to turn our radios on, but that Patrick not having his radio on made no difference that night. But that was one of the ones that was higher up in the report than some of the other things like a safety officer and things like that. And that was frustrating.
Harris is concerned some things like safety officers and rapid assistance teams are overlooked in the report. Hamilton Fire Chief Mark Mercer chose to respond in writing as opposed to sitting down for an interview. When we asked Mercer for his reaction to the report, he stated, "I really don't have a reaction to the report since my duties in the department have exposed me to the fact of the incident from the day it happened. The report is a product of those facts." While the radio is listed as the last of 5 contributing factors to Wolterman's death, RAT team response and safety officers are listed as additional findings. These emails obtained by Local 12 Investigates show Harris is not the only firefighter concerned with RAT response times and safety officers. Deputy Chief Thomas Eichelberger expressed his concerns with rapid assistance teams in an email in February 2018 to Chief Mercer, a year before the report was released. The RAT response finding does not address the issue. Our delay of RAT personnel on the fire scene that night goes far beyond Engine 21's proximity to the fire scene. Mercer responded to his deputy chief, "Thank you, Cap." The report's findings said the RAT team was on scene 41 seconds before the Mayday call. By that time, other crews had been battling the fire for 6 minutes. National fire standards state the RAT team should arrive on scene when the first crews do.
That's not enough time to set up your equipment and be ready to respond to a downed firefighter.
Mercer disagrees that the RAT response time was a contributing factor. He wrote, "No quicker action would have changed the outcome nor prevented the fatality." There's also those concerns about safety officers. The National Institute for Occupational Health and Safety wrote an independent report on Wolterman's death. Their 8th recommendation focused on having a dedicated safety officer at structure fires. Right now, during normal business hours, a safety officer is also the incident commander in Hamilton. Outside of normal business hours, a deputy chief has to be dispatched from home.
And the safety officer, that's something we've tried to find an answer to for years, and that's a standard in a lot of places.
Mercer said part of the reason there is no safety officer is that in an agreement with the union from October 2016, rather than staff shift safety officers, that additional staffing would be dedicated to an additional medic unit. Local 12 Investigates obtained these surveys from Hamilton fire commanders and officers following the NIOSH report. They show some commanders and officers agree with NIOSH's recommendation. One response said, "We should have a designated SO every day. Our system doesn't work." Another said, "This is based on resources, and until the city agrees to funding this, HFD will not be able to implement this properly." 2 grievances were filed regarding safety officers in February 2016. One grievance was from former Hamilton firefighter Bill Quinn. He said, "In most cases, it will take over 30 minutes from notification to get a safety officer on scene. In many cases, the most dangerous parts of the incident are long over before our safety officers would ever arrive on scene." In regards to the feedback on safety officers, Mercer wrote in part, "There is a greater awareness and increased training on the issues of fireground safety." According to the final report, the night Patrick Wolterman died, a safety officer was requested through dispatch at 1:20 a.m. The safety officer arrived 45 minutes later.
By that time, Patrick was already extricated from the building and all the way on his way to the hospital by then. So it didn't help that night.
The safety officer on scene that night was current chief Mark Mercer.
So by the time he got there, and like I said, through no fault of his own, he did not know he would have a Mayday.
Mercer wrote, "Hamilton's policy has been and continues to be that the duties of the safety officer are the responsibility of the incident commander unless and until they are delegated." Emails obtained by Local 12 Investigates show Mercer revised the report, including sections involving his role that night. When we asked him why he made changes to the preliminary report, he wrote, "While the report that was produced by the committee was submitted to the previous fire chief, he told me he would not release it. He did not give me any reasons for that, and I did not ask. I was not satisfied that all of the conclusions were accurate, and I worked with the committee to revise it." These minutes from a labor management meeting on January 31st, 2018, when Mercer was still a deputy chief, detail issues with the internal report. The minute states, "Deputy Chief Mercer states that he has made every allowance for people to have input, but the bottom line is that it is the fire chief's report, and he will approve the report, content, and format."
It's Patrick's report, plain and simple. I can't be any more clear about that. I've been clear that to my members, I've been clear that to his family, and I'll be clear to that until my dying day. That is Patrick's report. It's not my report, it's not the chief's report, it's nobody's report but Patrick's. And all we have to do in that report is honor Patrick by telling the truth, plain and simple.
We reached out to Wolterman's widow to get her take on this report, but she declined. Harris tells us some of the issues they had the night of Wolterman's death are still issues to this day.
I'd hoped when Channel 12 ran the report that they did, we'd get a response. Unfortunately, to this point, we haven't gotten a response.
A show of force tonight at Hamilton City Council meeting. 50 firefighters and their families packed council chambers hoping for answers in the wake of a Local 12 investigation. That report centered on the death of Patrick Wolterman 4 years ago. And Walter Smith Randolph is here now with whether council actually heard them out, Walter.
Yeah, Cammie, these concerns are about closed firehouses, a reduction in staffing, longer response times, and an altered investigative report. The Firefighters Union president says many of the issues they had the night Patrick Wolterman died linger 4 years later. Hamilton neighbors and firefighters packed the meeting to show their support for the fire department. They were there because their union chief spoke out to Local 12 about the internal report into Patrick Wolterman's death. Tony Harris says despite our investigation, no one from the city has reached out to him about the union's concerns about public safety. Harris says he hopes tonight's meeting and show of force will lead city leaders to have an open and honest discussion about those cuts and how they lead to other safety concerns. City Manager Joshua Smith told the crowd he wished the concerns were raised in a more appropriate venue.
If you truly believe what you just said, we were at the bargaining table this summer. IFF just ratified a contract not even in the past 100 days. That was the appropriate venue. We could have come to council. You could have said, hey, these are the issues we're having. Why? We want these addressed.
The city took out staffing out of our contract years ago and has never been willing to put it back in. We had a minimum when our cuts happened in 2013.
Tony, that's not true.
That is true because our
Tonight, Hamilton Mayor Pat Mueller says he has confidence in the city's fire administration and the city is committed to more training. Meantime, the union president says he hopes this opens up more talks with the city manager, and those could happen as early as tomorrow. Cammie?
All right, Walter, thank you. And to see our exclusive investigation of the report on Patrick Wolterman's line of duty death, you can head to local12.com and click on the investigation tab.